Let's continue with the dad's dialogue after Tom sits down.
We talked about this.
Now this one isn't really going to work. Though I'd love to continue using the same take, Tom is in the way of the dad as he begins his line, and he moves out of the way very awkwardly. So we may have to try out an entirely different take here. Let's check out take 3.
We talked about this. This is what's happening.
And I think take 3 is a really solid take in this performance. Let's cut in just the dad's lines. And take a look at this entire bit now together.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
Now we have to hop back into our line breakdown and find a reverse angle of Tom saying his lines back to his dad. And we want to try and keep in mind the emotion of the scene at this moment. Let's just listen to this line from the dad one time before we do that.
We talked about this. This is what's happening.
That's really great. Let's go ahead and check out Tom's reactions to that line. So, of course, we can't use this same take because we didn't have a camera on Tom at the time. So we have to somehow construct the scene using only Tom's coverage now in response to what his dad had to say. Even though they're always saying the exact same lines, it's possible to break the integrity of the emotion of the scene by cutting together the wrong performance. For example, let me just try the very first take here and see what happens.
I don't understand why they won't let Myra come. It doesn't make any sense.
So that performance, while good, doesn't really work against what the dad is doing, which feels very stern, but also very caring. Tom seems a little too lax here, like he's not quite fighting for something. Let's check out some later takes.
But I don't understand why they won't take Myra. It doesn't make sense.
This take fits much better with the dad's performance. You can see that Tom is really listening to what his dad had to say to him and is really feeling the weight of the decision that he's already made. I think we should cut this take into our scene. Let's listen to both of those lines back to back now.
We talked about this. This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they won't take Myra. It doesn't make sense.
Now, as you're starting to see these shots come together, we're beginning to notice a pattern between the different shots that we're using. We're typically using one of the last takes of any given shot. For example, we're using the last 2 takes of 8D, and we're using the very last thing filmed from 8A, take 6, pickup. Chances are, when you're constructing your very first edit of a scene, you're going to probably be relying on some of the later takes that were shot on production, because there's a good chance that those takes were the times when the director felt like they got really close to what they were looking for, and that's why they moved on to the next shot. Even though you ultimately might end up swapping those later on for different takes or different performances, it's good to begin here because more than likely this is the intention of the direction the film is heading in. It's also okay if your edit is a little bit sloppy here at the beginning. You want to make it pretty good, but the idea here is to just get something contextual on the timeline so that you can watch it back and get a better sense of what needs to change. For example, if I just come over here to the beginning and we watch from here to the end.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they won't take Myra. It doesn't make sense.
What we can see is that there's a lot of seemingly dead air between what's happening at the beginning and what's happening at the end that we could speed up and make a little bit more intense for the characters. For example, after the dad says his line and continues to look, Tom is just barely sitting down. But just for an example, let's go ahead and cut to a point where Tom is mid-sit, like right here. So I'm going to make an out point, and I'll make an in point here, and we'll just remove this section. And if we watch that back again,
I left a suitcase out for you in your room.
we get the effect that Tom has actually been moving this entire time that his dad was speaking. And with a little bit of sound design of hearing some of Tom's additional footsteps throughout the dad's take, will really cement that idea home. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of this scene together. And if you want to follow along with us, you can use the provided PDF document to get to exactly where we left off before the next lesson. You're also welcome to choose your own favorite shots and takes that are different from ours. You'll still be able to move forward in the project either way you choose to go. So as I'm building my scene here, I'm trying not to get too in the weeds about the different shots that I'm using or bringing in too many reactions. We're going to go ahead and refine the scene later on anyway and really dig into all of that. The idea here is to just get something down on the timeline for context. It's a lot easier to change things when you know what's wrong with them than it is to make something perfect from the very beginning. In fact, I would even argue that it would be impossible to make something perfect from scratch, and that the only way to really get to something stronger than what you had is to begin somewhere that isn't ideal and begin to refine it to work the best. And that's why our first edit looks pretty terrible. I mean, it gets the idea across. As you can see, I have the entire timeline pretty much put together here, but it's missing a lot of really important moments and beats between the characters, and it doesn't look like the nice polished timeline that we demonstrated earlier in this course. But by going in and refining this timeline, we're going to get it there. So let's watch what we just put together.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they won't take Myra. It doesn't make sense.
I love that horse as much as you do, but Myra is just a horse.
I'm not going if she can't come with us.
Tom! The horse will be fine. I can't promise, but you trained her to be solid and strong. And now you need to do that for yourself. This is something we have to do as a family. We're going out in the universe. We're going out in the universe to make a new life. This is important. I need you to say goodbye. Because come Friday morning, we have to go.
This lesson is going to have some homework. First, practice using your line breakdown to find the best takes of your scene. Next, cut the best takes of each line into your scene. It's okay if this isn't perfect, because coming up in the next lesson, we're going to talk about refining the kitchen table scene, part 1.